Andrew is another excellent networker and a champion of technology and mission. He's currently with Indigitous, where digital meets missional. Over to you, Andrew.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris. I actually just came from a meeting with Dr. Johnson and Dr. Zolo. I'm actually at Gordon Seminary, so so glad to be here and just continue to the discussion about missions information. And we were just exploring what would it look like to reimagine some of the data that's been curated by kind of like the Gordon Seminary, the center over there, and trying to say there's so much academic data. How do we visualize it from maybe a pamphlet or maybe like a flyer perspective rather from the academic? So I will go ahead and share my presentation here. And see. So glad to be here. My name is Andrew. I'm from Indigitous. It's two words combined, indigenous and digital. And so as we talk about tech and missions, we want to really talk about developing relationships. And so I will make kind of the PowerPoint available later. Just kind of as a high level background, I guess as you guys meet so many different people today, I want to try to kind of provide like the ABCs about myself. Like I really want to be your authentic advocate. Whatever cause that you guys are kind of discerning that the Lord has kind of given you guys, Indigitous is really a movement, a platform for us to kind of help advance each of your different movements or callings or even kind of like different causes. And then we want to try to see out of those different causes, are there bottlenecks? If there's a bottleneck, can we catalyze collaboration and break some of those bottlenecks? God's given me just an opportunity to start out at Yahoo early on in my collegiate years in early 2000. So this is like pre-Google. And so Yahoo was actually like pretty cool space to be at. And then later we went into management consulting for about 10 years. And after that, we just felt like everything was kind of chasing after the wind, building a bigger barn. And we went over to East Asia for about another 5 years. And then most recently, I helped, came back to the US. We adopted our special needs son and in different roles, whether it's Frontier Ventures, Vision Synergy, we love to kind of help with collaboration. And so for us today, I think some of us might already know, but the digital headlines for 2022, and this is from a secular research, but one of the more kind of popular research firms out there, they said about 8 billion people, 67% have access to mobile phones, and about 5 billion people have access to internet. And so just think about that for a second, that out of the entire world of about 8 billion people, 5 out of 8 have access to internet and through mobile phones. And then pretty much 4.6 of them have access to social media. And so is there a way for us to kind of like use technology, data, and continue what it would look like? And actually, on average, everybody uses 6 hours and 58 minutes. The global average across all the different countries, about 6 hours and 58 minutes. Every single day, people are using data. And so that would be pretty interesting to say, okay, as you look at these different countries, from South Africa at 10 hours and 46 minutes to Japan, 4 hours and 26 minutes. US is right in the middle at 7 hours and 5 minutes. How do we continue to capture some of the data? And there's quite a bit going around, and there's a way to capture some of that, or maybe even leverage technology. Is there a way to kind of accelerate the Great Commission? Okay. And so I want us to kind of think about this mental model called pre-mortem. And so it's a thought experiment to tell the fictional story of our endeavor's destruction. And so as we are talking about missions information, accelerating the Great Commission, like what are some like critical factors that we can kind of almost like think about right now? If it came true, it would really derail our endeavor. And so some of these things that we're exploring is like, well, we need to know that we have unknown unknowns, that each of us here on the call, although we are subject matter experts in this one domain, there are many, many other domains that are foreign to us, that are new to us. And so how would it be possible for us to minimize the amount of unknown unknowns? And I think that's actually a pretty big one for the bottleneck, that there's so much information on one side, maybe of academic research, and there's so much information on the practitioners, the actual, the boots on the ground from the different practitioners. Like there's actually, the exchange of information is a little bit more limited. And then across countries, across languages, there's like a pretty big bottleneck there. And so how do we continue to say, okay, well, as missions information, workers, we almost have this curse of knowledge. Whenever I speak to Chris or Laura or friends on the prayer meeting, we're like, I need to kind of like better understand the different glossary or vocabulary that the mission information workers are using, because there's probably decades, like 10, 20, 30 years of missions information knowledge that you guys have built up. And as a younger brother in Christ, as we're learning about missions information, it's all pretty new to us. And so how do we continue to figure out what would be the happy medium from like academic level to like the layperson, continue to contextualize it so that technologists or different people from the next generation continue to contribute to global mission. And so from Indigitous perspective, we created that Indigenous and digital needs to be kind of the next generation. And then we want to be missional, open to all, and we want to be highly collaborative. And so kind of like one effort that we've been exploring, it's just a hackathon. And as we're talking about—
Andrew, can I just ask you to slow down a little bit?
Sure.
I think you've got plenty of time, and we're having interpretation into Portuguese. I'm sure it'll be difficult for them when you're going at that speed.
Got it. Appreciate it. So we have about 5-6 more minutes. We will kind of just highlight a few slides, and then I'm always available to share afterwards. And so I think from the hackathon perspective, we said, what if we gathered 1,000 technologists from around the world, from 46 countries, 150 cities, and we said, American Bible Society, World Vision, Coalition of the World, Coalition of the Willing, like what can we do together if there's people from all over the world to brainstorm, to crowdsource solutions? And so as we think about a hackathon, it's really just a group project. Think of it a really, really big group project that there's no solution, but everybody's just going to brainstorm ideas and try to complete it within a day or a weekend. And so this year, we'll be working with Finishing the Task, IJM, and also Stadia Church Planning. We said, how do we kind of scrape public data about where churches are not, and think about church planning? For FTT, how do we continue to explore advancing kind of the Great Commission through different public data that's available? So I think we will be sharing that at the upcoming meeting in October. And so we look at all the different friends of the hackathon. I know there's a lot of logos on here that a lot of us are aware of. So we definitely think of Lausanne, Wycliffe, like amazing. But you think of the ones down here, Kingdom Code. Brother James out of UK, he's done amazing work for kind of like coding for the kingdom. Basil Tech, Francis Chan's ministry, kind of like partnered with them. And so Upstream out of Pioneers. And so there's a whole entire group of people that are using tech for missions. And so we think of Ecclesia. I know Brother Eldon is here through Gem Mobile, and they have an entire network of network leaders. And so there's so many people here that can continue to leverage technology and facilitate the communication. And so we want to kind of fulfill the Great Commission through missional micro projects, and we want to engage and unleash believers into digital mission. And we continue to explore, like, what would it look like if young people are able to come together to solve some of the mission's data information needs? And so imagine you guys had a need, but you guys maybe don't have the bandwidth or resources to kind of build this app or this research. And so we said, well, let's do a report. Let's just, before we even build anything else, let's do a high-level report. So we collaborated with some 20 different technologists. We provided this report to Lausanne, to FTT. We said, look at the apps here. This app right here, Glorify, they raised $84 million from the public market to build an app to help you with your spiritual disciplines. If you haven't checked it out, it's a pretty interesting app. And I know some of us know YouVersion, Gospels, Abide. You think about all the different ways that people are learning to engage with scripture outside actual kind of reading, but there's people using Dwell. Dwell is basically an audio Bible. You could change the music, the reader from UK, from an African speaker, American speaker, male, female, different translations. And so Dwell is a pretty interesting one. You can see some of the other apps out here. And then we said, well, what about networks? There's so many amazing networks out here that we want to continue to provide space where people come together. And so just most recently, there was a gathering of missions and technologists. About 20 of us gathered in Atlanta to saying, what would it look like if we continue to use that technology and missions together? And so actually at that event, we were kind of having this consultation, and we identified all these different needs, right? Whether it's security, data, progress, collaboration, how do we have like field-driven innovation, orality, connectivity, and then in the middle of it, I just feel like all this technology, it's not about the technology. There's 2 million apps out there. There's tons of open source software. It's not like we need more tech. We actually just need more love. And then I was like, I don't even know the brother sitting across from me, if he's married or if he has kids. And so it was kind of weird, but I was like, I'm so sorry, but like, I literally don't know if you're married or if you have kids. Like, can we just go around and just like share our family background really quick before we talk about all this like very structured, strategic things? And then during the break, we created a WhatsApp group, and we just asked everybody to submit their family photos. And then it was out of that little sharing of information, just a family photo, who's in the family photo, where they were, like the temperature of the room became to like warm up to say, oh, I have a dog, or you know, I visited that place. And so I think talking about missions and technology is really, really important. But I think the idea of like creating these collaborative efforts out of love is really, really important. And so this was just like a little passage we studied last week on love, but I think it just kind of like underscores the idea that we don't really need innovation of new technology. If the technology was needed, probably the secular marketplace have created it. There might be specialized things that we could customize here and there. Most of the part, I think, is relationships. I remember I was talking to another mobilization team leader in the Northwest, and he was saying, we already have a lot of super connectors. We need more super connectors, because it is the connectors that have, like, I think, Brother Mike Lasco's here, to like the trusted brokers. As we have these trusted brokers, the information does flow a little bit faster, but we need to figure out how to scale the kind of the creation of these trusted brokers. So as we continue to kind of just like wrap up today, I just want to kind of encourage us that this idea is truly out of love. Like, even if we have all the data in the world, but we don't have love, it's just like we're noisy, gone, we're plain simple. And so if there's a way that we can encourage one another, learning to love one another in different ways. I know some of us have been praying on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and it's so encouraging to kind of continue to foster those relationships beyond technology. And so one last picture is gonna, as we're sharing about collaboration, I think most of the time people are just thinking about sharing up for information, but as you move down kind of like the collaboration scale, we really want to continue to explore. Does it mean resources, improving the capacity of one another? I just think of capacity of how can the West support the rest, or even like the global North versus the global South. And so those are things that we've been kind of exploring. Chris, is that about 15 minutes?
Thank you, Andrew. That was tour de force. Yes. Okay.